Hey guys, so I just happened to be able to get a Mazda CX-5 as a rental. This is the 2018 model year in the Touring trim. It's also all-wheel drive. And I wanted to put up a video to specifically discuss how this base engine, the 185 horsepower engine, performs on highway speeds. I think a lot of us would take this type of vehicle on long trips. And as we know, on the 2019 model year, Mazda released a turbo engine on the top two trims. So a lot of us are deciding whether or not to consider that engine or just stick with this base. So I know it's a question that I had myself, is what is this car performing with that base engine when you're cruising at highway speeds, which is roughly 75 to 85 miles an hour? And I think I've got about 70 miles into this current trip that I've had, and mostly taking back roads just to test out the handling. So far, so good on that. You know, it's you can feel the bumps in the road, and I think that's just a trait of this particular model, the CX-5. It's a little bit more sporty than some of its rivals, the CR-V, RAV4, Equinox. But once we get out on the road, I'll go ahead and just start recording when we're going at those highway speeds, and also hopefully give you guys an indication of what the road noise is like at those speeds. So we'll go ahead and take this car out on the road. We're cruising down this one straight road going 60 miles an hour the whole way. Road noise, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say it's probably like a 5. I mean, it's not loud or anything, but it's measurable. But acceleration-wise, power-wise, the car drives very smooth. Really no complaints, no bumps. It's just a very precise ride. And most of us will probably be cruising at 60 miles an hour anyway, so this is where the CX-5 I think is going to be very happy. So very much appreciate the way it's performing on this type of road. Alright guys, this is the low speed footage on the Mazda CX-5, and I gotta tell you, everything you guys have read on reviews and on the online videos is pretty much true to form. I mean, the steering on here is very tight, and it takes these curves very nicely. And again, I think I've only driven like a Nissan Rogue and a Kia Sorento. By comparison, I mean, those don't hold a candle to this so far. And this is a pretty tight turn. Let's see how we can fare here. All right, so I almost overran that, but the CX-5 performed pretty well. Hey guys, so you know, this is actually pretty interesting. I just hit 100 miles on this road trip, and as you can see, my miles per gallon over that 100-mile stretch is 31. I mean, that's pretty fantastic, knowing the history of SUVs in general. Of course, this is just a what they call a crossover. So actually, you know, I had a Honda Accord not too long ago, and it was a V6 engine. I was lucky to get, you know, 28 on a similar trip like this, and to get 31 and climbing, I think that's pretty exceptional. So a really positive mark for this Mazda CX-5. All right guys, so let's see how fast we can get on this road. I'm cruising around 80, and as you can see, I'm trying to go a little bit faster. The RPMs kick up a bit, so I think this is where that difference would be with the turbo engine. If you're cruising at 80 and you want to gas it up, the RPMs won't jump up like they did for us just then. But outside of that, you know, there's no complaints. Again, I mean, I could be cruising at 80 and it's just a very smooth ride. And if I wanted to pass up somebody, I could easily do it. Let's see, if I wanted to get close to this guy, I mean, well, he's not going as fast as I am, but so I think the verdict is, again, this is this base engine is plenty adequate for these type of trips, for these highway speeds. And if you want to spoil yourself, obviously go with the turbo, but I think this is a great option in the base engine. All right, guys, so I'm actually cruising at just over 70 miles an hour. And again, this car is, here, let me get up to 75 and maybe even to 80. This car is you know, it's handling it perfectly. I mean, there's not that big of an increase in road noise. You know, I think it's just performing as well as you would imagine for a vehicle of this size and weight. And if you were making a, you know, half a cross-country trip, you know, this CX-5 is going to do the trick with this base engine. So I would imagine the turbo engine is just going to be even more healthier, but this is on a scale of 1 to 10, cruising at these highway speeds, I would say it's about a 7 at worst, which is excellent. So we'll keep on going. Once I get to an interstate, I'll go a little bit higher, and we'll see what it looks like then. All right, guys, let's talk about road noise in the Mazda CX-5. I'm cruising at 70 miles an hour, and I would basically on a 10-point scale, 1 being the best as far as road noise, 10 being a Jeep Wrangler with the doors off. I would put this at a 5, you know, because you can still hear lots of road noise, but it's not prohibitive to the point where you're just being frustrated by it. It's something that you would simply would have to expect. I would say in this particular segment of the crossover SUVs, I'm sure the competitors offer just a little bit better in terms of performance or lack thereof road noise. And you know, maybe on a really nicely paved road, the CX-5 could go as high as a 3, but I would say 5 on average on a scale of 1 to 10. Hey guys, I wanted to take an opportunity to record this really nice road that I'm driving on right now with the CX-5. It's as nice of a road as you can get, and there's no bumps at all on this road. So this is going 80 miles an hour cruising. This would be like the quietest at these high speeds that this car would get. And you know, back to my original estimation, it's like you know, on a 1 to 10, 1 being the quietest, it's like a 4. You can still hear the wind outside, but it's manageable. Nothing really to complain too much about, but I just wanted to get that nice road documented. Just wanted to add this little beauty shot of the CX-5 as it's hugging the Chesapeake Bay behind it. It's just a good looking car in this silver color in particular. Alright guys, so we're basically cruising at a steady speed here on this bridge, going about 65 miles an hour. And you know, obviously this is the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. It's kind of old, so the road is very patchy on most of the stretch, but you know, not too much road noise in the CX-5. You know, you can put it on cruise control. It would be pretty smooth at these speeds, 75. And again, this is just another example of how smooth this base engine is. You know, you can put it on cruise. It doesn't sound like the engine is putting much effort into maintaining 70, 75 miles an hour. So it's just a really positive indication of the base engine. Pretty much gives you everything you really need. All right guys, so let's get some interstate driving in the CX-5. And I do want to apologize for the way the video is presented. I know a lot of videographers, the pros at least, use the fixed cameras, and I'm using this Blair Witch presentation like it's 1999. But as you can see, we're traveling 80, 85 miles an hour. And again, this base engine, and I may have mistakenly said 185 in parts of this video. It's actually 187. 187 is the official horsepower of the base engine, and it's perfectly adequate. There's no shakiness beneath your feet at these speeds, and passing power I think is adequate. Let's see if I wanted to get past this guy. You know, you can gun it a little and go right past somebody. I do want to add, earlier there was a wide open stretch and I did gun it where I wanted to see sort of just how fast this car could go, and interestingly enough, 95 miles an hour, that was the sort of the limit. And I honestly can't foresee a scenario where you would need to go faster than 95 in a vehicle this size. Certainly in any unsanctioned scenario. But even at 95, like I said, it was very smooth, and everything is just sort of very consistent. And you know, again, cruising at 60 is amazing. I think that's where the CX-5 loves to drive at. And if you can see the miles per gallon on this stretch of 116 miles, still averaging 31.1. I would say that's about 80% in this open road, 20% stop and drive. And I think this actually is rated at 31 highway, so it's really good that they've actually marketed to an actual MPG. And if you guys go on a road trip, I can guarantee it'd probably be higher than 31 if you're on a straight road for a few hours. So that's my impression on Interstate with the 187 horsepower base engine. I think it's perfectly adequate. All right, guys, so just to recap the video, this is the grand total of this whole trip of 756 miles, 30.6 mpg. Not too shabby. Most of that was highway miles. So basically, you know, just to sum up, this again was the base engine, 187 horsepower engine, and you know, $6,500, that's the key figure, because that's how much you would have to spend to move up from this particular trim, the Touring trim, which I think is the one that you should start out with. The Sport doesn't have the Apple CarPlay, some of the sensing. The Touring trim is really where you should start out. So $6,500 on top of this will get you that turbo engine. So is that worth it? So at 187 horsepower, as you saw throughout the video, I was able to manage pretty decent speeds, and in my estimation, it was as smooth as you could imagine for this size of a vehicle. I also want to give a shout out to that lane keeping assist function on here, because this was obviously my first time with an SUV in general on such a long trip, and it really came in handy navigating, you know, narrow roads like this one, where the steering wheel will sort of guide you, make sure you're not off course. But everything about it, it really opened my eyes, and I had never even thought about an SUV before I took this trip, and I think Mazda has got a winner. Obviously, it's highly reviewed. You guys have seen plenty of videos on this. I just wanted to figure out what that engine was about, and I think I keep on saying that same word, adequate. I don't want to oversell it or anything, but it did its job, and this can just be a daily driver for anyone. As far as having fun, stuff like that, I mean, you could always, you know, rent a car or something like that for have some real fun. You know, most people don't generally go with SUVs for that, but I just was thoroughly impressed with what this vehicle was able to give me. Great MPG, sufficient power, and so it's just a decision if you guys want to go to that next engine. I'm sure it'll be, you know, stunning, because this was everything I really needed for my type of driving. And I just think that the base engine is is something to consider for sure. And if you're going to test drive it, test drive this vehicle, make sure you test drive this 187 horsepower engine first. And I think it'll give you a very good impression. I appreciate you guys watching this video.